was quick. Press that button. That was really quick to record.
Yeah.
Welcome, Caroline, yet again. Here we are.
Lovely, thank you.
We're having a chat today because we're going to talk about paper 1 for English language, more specifically AQA.
That's
What
right. Yes.
specialise in.
Yeah.
That's what Caroline. Oh, actually, I'm going to leave you to explain your revision course briefly, and then you
Sure.
are going to give our students and our audience some really amazing top tips for
Yeah.
answering those 5 questions from paper 1 for English language. So
Certainly.
I'm going to sit and listen, and I might ask some
Yes.
questions, but I'm a scientist,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I've always said my speciality is not English, but I will ask questions if I have a question. Okay, but
Yeah.
over to
Absolutely.
you, Caroline. Thank you.
Okay. So my silver course, it covers the whole of the AQA English Language GCSE, both papers. It's broken into 12 modules, and each module focuses on one particular question, and it gives you the exact structure you need to answer each of those questions at a top level. So it's giving you what the examiners are looking for, and it breaks it down, the processes you need to go through for each question, what the examiners are looking for. It gives you model answers, it gives you mark schemes. There's also custom GPTs, which are trained on my teaching methods. It's trained on the exam board. It's trained on the mark schemes. So it's not like getting things randomly from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And yes, so I've had great success with it. People have really shot up the grades, and that's it in a
Yeah.
nutshell.
It's just
I don't know whether there's anything.
yeah, no, that I think you've described it brilliantly. It's just ironing out each question one by one, so you know
Yeah,
what to do. I mean, I know it's
exactly.
targeted for grades sort of 7 to 9, isn't it? But I think
Yeah,
even if you're struggling with the
yeah.
English, I think you'll benefit from this.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's so often students think, oh, you're either good at English or you're not.
Mm.
But that's absolutely not right. It's a skill like any other. And if you
Mm.
practice the skill, and if you're shown exactly what's required, it can make a massive difference.
Yeah. Yes.
Two
Technique.
students of mine have just gone up 2 grades just within a few weeks.
Yeah.
So it absolutely makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the techniques, and it's knowing what the examiners are looking for.
Same as science. It's
So
exactly the same thing
yeah,
we say.
yeah,
You know, the more questions you do, the more mark schemes you look at and use,
yeah,
and the better.
yeah,
And with yours, it's just the support and just
yeah,
cutting out all the rubbish and just going, right,
yeah,
do this, do this, do
yeah.
this. And
Yes,
away you go.
yes, absolutely. Having a system in place,
Yes.
and following that, it takes the stress out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it works.
Yeah.
So that's the course. Well, there's a lot more to it than that, but
Yeah.
that's it in brief. So yes, I mean, what I would say in terms of how to approach revision, it's it's not enough just to keep doing practice papers, practice papers. You've got to know what the examiner's looking for. You've got
Mm.
to really, really, really be aware of that. And so what I was going to do is just give a little tip for each question. Would that
Yes,
be,
please.
sort of give,
Yes.
yeah? Okay, so before I actually focus in on each question, I would say get the timings right. When I was an examiner, people would spend too long on the first 3 questions of
Mm.
paper 1. And then for question 4, which is worth 20 marks, that's 25% of the whole paper of
Yeah.
paper 1. They were like one paragraph, and I think, oh no.
Yeah.
So yes, and I would say, practice under time conditions.
Yeah.
So, question 1, it's worth only 4 marks. You're spending 5 minutes. So put the timer down. So if you're starting at 2 o'clock, put against question 2, 2:05. And so you move
Mm.
on, even if you haven't finished. You leave a space, you can go back to it.
Yeah.
But the most marks are gained at the beginning when you're starting. So yes, be really rigid about timing. And this is another top tip. And I know some people on social media say, or some teachers say, oh, do question 5 first. Well, I can understand the reasoning for that because obviously question 5 is worth 40 marks. It's 50% of the whole paper. But the questions 1 to 4 are warming you up. They're giving you an example of, really good literature, and it's asking you to focus on language, focus on structure,
Mm.
and then it's warming your brain up so that you can actually use those same, hopefully, in your writing. So as long as you've kept to the timings and you've left enough time for question 5, I would say do it in the right order.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
caveat to that, I would say question 1, it asks you to read the first 5 lines or first few lines and then answer some multiple choice questions. It will be for 2026. And I would say instead of reading the whole paper and then going back and rereading those few lines and then doing question 1, I would say read those first few lines first,
yeah.
do question 1 before you've read the rest of the paper, because you've got it then fresh in your mind.
Yes.
So that's the top tip for question 1. And then, obviously, for question 2, which is the language question, go back and read the whole of it.
Mm.
But that just gets you off, psychologically, it gets you off to a good start. So any questions about that? Is that,
No, that sounds
is that clear?
absolutely
Good.
perfect. Yep.
Okay. So then question 2 is the language question. And again, they give you a little passage to read. They print it out on the paper. And they're asking how the writers use language to
Mm.
create a particular effect. What most students do here, they think, oh, right, I've got to pick out a simile, I've got to pick out a metaphor, I've got to pick out personification. Um, and and then they do. And that's it. And I think, oh no, oh no, you've got to say what's the effect? Why has the writer used
Yeah.
personification? How has it made you feel? And that's where the marks are gained. So
It's the it's the
yeah,
RTQ thing of it. Read the question. Don't
yes,
that's it.
yeah,
So many marks get lost because they just
yeah,
don't read the question properly.
yeah, yeah. So
Mm.
it really is how, and yes, and this is in a way it's harder for English because there's no right answer. I can't say, well, this is how it's meant to make you feel.
Mm.
But if you can just be when you're first reading that passage, if you can really start to think, rather than reading it the initial time, thinking I've got to pick out all the metaphors and the similes, just thinking about what is the writer trying to do here? What is the writer trying to make me feel? And you allow yourself to engage in that way,
Yeah.
that's the way to do it. And then you can start looking at the techniques that the writer uses and how they've contributed to make you feel that way.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's
so
probably a good thing. Just to read it, go right now. How do I feel after I've read that?
yes,
And then go
yes,
back, going,
exactly.
how has the writer made me feel like that?
Exactly right.
That's
Yes.
good. I
Yes.
like
Often people skip that first step. And
it.
I can understand it. They're anxious. They're in, the time's ticking. They've got to get right something in. But that every writer is trying to draw the reader in, is trying to make the reader feel something. Um, and you've got to allow yourself to be drawn in. So that's question 2. And obviously for the top grades, if you can give more than one interpretation, if you've picked out a simile, or if you can actually think about, right, what is more than one interpretation, then that immediately pushes you up.
Mm.
So yes, I mean in the June 2018, there was a passage where it was about a teacher, and he was talking about he was sitting there marking, and he was fed up. He didn't want to do the marking, and he was thinking about how yeah, you can relate. um, yeah, but he was thinking about how reading in the past, and he was talking about how it was, books were like, they ran like gazelles, they pounced like tigers. So if you were looking at those similes, you could think, now he's thinking about reading ran like gazelles. Why choose that? What's he saying about the reading that it's having that effect on people's minds? The fact that they were immersed in the gazelles were running fast, and the freedom and pouncing like tigers. Well, that obviously indicates the sort of shock when you're reading something and you're totally immersed in it and you're feeling shocked, maybe also a sense of danger. So
Mm.
unpacking the language, not just saying, oh, they've used a simile. Lovely.
Well done.
Yeah, well done.
Why?
Why? Why? You recognize it's a simile, but yeah, what's the effect of it?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that would be question two. Now, question three is not language, it's structure. And when I was marking this, I would say the majority of students still were writing about language. And
Okay.
structure is different. Structure is how a piece of writing has been put together, where the writer is directing your attention. So I always compare it to almost like a film director. There's a shot of this, then there's a close up, and then there's a distance,
Ah.
where are they directing your attention?
Mm.
And obviously, what's the effect of it? Why are they doing that?
Mm.
Why have we suddenly gone in, why have we gone suddenly inside the character's mind? And this question has slightly changed. I think they've made it a little bit more clear, AQA, and they've said, instead of just saying, how has the writer structured this piece to interest you as the reader? Very vague. Now they're saying specifically, how has the writer structured it to create maybe a sense of tension, maybe a sense of mystery? So it's specific. So
Yeah.
it's a bit better. You can hang on to something.
Yeah. It
Um,
gives you a bit more
yeah.
structure and a bit of framework to go on, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's much better.
So
Thank you,
you're
Rachel.
tracking, yeah, what you're doing in that, you're tracking where has the writer focusing your attention and why. And that why is important.
Okay.
Um, so, I mean, an example of that, I've just been teaching, I forget which it was I think it was June 2020, and it was a passage from an extract from a book, The Silk Factory. And the passage started, the strange girl had appeared. And then we get nothing more about this strange girl.
Hmm.
So it's you think, oh, it's introduced something, and then we learn about Rosie, who's just moved into this house, and it's very exhausting, and she's watching her children play. And then we get this strange girl appearing, out of nowhere. And then at the end of the passage, she goes out to see this girl, and she's disappeared. So we've got a cyclical structure. We've got right at the beginning, mention of the girl appearing, and then at
Hmm.
the end, the girl disappearing. So, that would be something to notice, the cyclical structure, but you've got to say why. What's the effect?
Hmm.
Well, the effect is at the beginning, it creates a sense of it does create a sense of mystery because you think, well, what's this
Curiosity,
girl?
isn't it? Yeah.
It's raising questions in our mind.
Hmm.
Um, and writers love to do that,
Hmm.
raise questions which are not answered
Hmm.
because we're then engaged. We want to carry on, we want to carry on reading. But don't say, oh, if you just say, oh, it makes the reader want to read on, you won't get any marks for that. You've got to say why.
Yeah.
Well, because we want to know who this strange girl is. We want to know, what she's doing, how has she appeared, and the cyclical structure there was it wasn't resolved. It was left
Yeah.
unresolved, and so we were,
Frustrating, that
we
is.
let yeah, and absolutely there is a sense of frustration, and yet we want to know, and so it compels us to want to carry on reading. So yes, that's structure. Quick example. There are other things that we can
Yeah.
talk about, flashbacks, and so you need to know the techniques that writers use. You need to be able to spot them, but as with the language, you need to say what's the effect.
Yeah.
How does it make me feel? How does it contribute to that, whatever it is, sense of mystery,
It's
sense of
it's
tension?
like sort of two, like with science. I always relate to science.
Yeah.
It's like they say, oh, it increases, but what increases, and in relation to
Exactly.
what? It is
Yes.
that extra bit.
Yes.
And I always say, just think the examiner is really thick,
Yes. Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
And you have to
Spell
explain
it out.
everything
Yes.
in detail, and it counts for every single subject, really.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
just go yes or no or up
Yeah.
or down. You need more. You need
Yeah.
more, and
Yeah.
just by doing that, you'll probably go up a grade, easy.
Oh, way easily up a grade, maybe
Yeah.
more. Yeah, probably more.
Mm.
Yeah, so if you get into the habit of asking yourself those questions,
Mm.
um, yes, because with some of my one-to-one students, they've got the answers and they've written it, when I prompt them, they've got it.
Yeah.
But you've got it when you're in the exam, obviously you won't have your teacher sitting next to you prompting. You've got
Yeah.
to be prepared to ask yourself that question. Well, why why did they start? Why did they start that? Why have they created that? Um, why have they used that simile?
Just why,
Yeah.
why all the time? Why?
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
So that's question 3. Now question 4, this is the question which so many people fall down on.
Mm.
It's worth 20 marks, so it's 25% of the paper. You're given a statement about the passage, and you've got to either agree or disagree. It's evaluation.
Ooh. Mm.
And a lot of people, they just don't write enough. They, write a paragraph or something. I'll give you an example that'll make it a bit clearer.
Yeah.
With that passage I just gave you with the silk factory where the girl disappeared, they said that the disappearance of the girl was not at all surprising. It was obvious from the beginning that she was a product of Rosie's imagination. So you've got to read that statement and you think, now, do I agree with it or not? And I would say to get to the top bands, I would say it's quite useful to partially agree, partially disagree, not necessarily fully agree or fully
Mm.
disagree. So with that statement, I would think actually there was some doubt. I think that actually the girl was described in such detail.
Yeah.
And there were so many specific details of the way she was described. And I would say, go and look this up, June 2020. You can find it on the AQA website. Read it. Um, that actually the reader wasn't left in no doubt that she was part of Rose's imagination. So if you're able to evaluate, but
Mm.
again, you've got to give the reasons why.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You've got to really pick out, and you've got to track through the passage. It's not the whole of the passage. They usually give you a certain section, but it's usually quite a large section. And you've got to make sure you go through it really carefully and bring out evidence as to how far you agree or how far you
Mm.
disagree.
Mm.
Um, and you can agree with one part of the statement and not the other. Um, you
Ah.
can agree with both, or you can disagree with both. There's no right or wrong, as long as you're giving the evidence
Yeah.
and analysing that
Yeah.
evidence.
And that
Um,
key thing evaluates, again with science, you have to do the pros and cons and then write a conclusion. What is
yeah,
your
yeah,
opinion of this and why?
yeah, yes,
It'll go like,
yes,
therefore, I think da da da.
yes,
And that's the critical bit for that. If it's
yeah,
a
yeah,
6 marker, that's where you're going to get your sixth
yeah,
mark. If you don't put
yes,
it, you don't get
yeah,
it.
yes. Oh, this is 20 marks,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
question.
But yeah,
So,
you go
yes,
more detail. We're science. We don't. Yeah, we just add a little bit more.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but you probably have a lot more, far more questions
Yeah.
than
Oh,
5.
yeah. We have loads of
Yeah.
questions. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We just have 5 questions. So, but
Mm.
yeah, so that's question 4. I'd really practice that because it can make a difference between one grade and another.
Yeah.
And then obviously paper 1, question 5. This is the really big one. This is 40 marks, and the examiners mark it twice. So it actually comes up on the screen twice. You mark it first for content and organization, and you get a mark out of 24. And then it comes up when you've marked it for that, then it comes up on the screen again, and you mark it for technical accuracy, and that's mark. So it is a really important question, and it's worth it is worth spending the time on this. Now, in order to get the top marks, it's not about writing masses and masses. And in a lot of cases, students have written pages and pages and pages, and I think, oh no, this is actually, you haven't had the time to go back and really craft it. It's far better to write less and to have really thought about the structure,
Mm.
perhaps you could use a cyclical structure, or, starting in media res when you're starting in the middle of action, in the action,
Mm.
and where, you're creating a sense of, in the reader, what's going on, raising questions in the minds of the reader, and then going on to give more detail. But it's got to be crafted, and I would say you need to plan. Um, And what the exam board have said quite helpfully, they've changed this for
Hmm.
2026, is that you don't have to write a whole story, whole story. The narrative, it could be the opening of a story. So I would
Okay.
say keep the plot simple, keep to
Mm.
one character, keep it to be at one simple event. And then you've got the time to really think about crafting
Yeah.
writing, using the
Is,
different techniques that
is it just like
are
a
available.
blank page, or do you get a theme
So
to?
you obviously you get a picture, and you can either write a description,
Mm.
and I'll come on to that in a minute because some students think I've just got to write everything that's in the picture, and that's very boring. Um, so either you can write a description, or they give you a narrative. So I think with that paper I was referencing, I think it was something like they gave a picture of some mysterious gates in mist. So you can either, write description inspired by that picture, or write about a story where things turned out unexpectedly, or there was something like that, or there was a sense of
And have they got
um,
space where, for me, if I was approaching that, I'd be like, right, I need to brainstorm. I need to sort of brainstorm ideas before I start
yeah,
writing.
absolutely, yes.
Um,
So you do need to do that.
yeah.
You need to spend 5 minutes planning.
Okay.
Absolutely. Um, and I would say in terms of preparing for this question, um, you know, do plan, even if you don't write all the stories, get into the habit of spending 5 minutes planning. So you've got your ideas.
Mm,
You're planning also what techniques you're going to use. Um, in terms of structure, how are you going to start? Um, Planning in terms of language devices you're going to use.
yeah.
Are you going to use personification? Are you going to use pathetic fallacy? Um, because that's what the examiners are looking to see, not just that you're able to throw in a few big words and hope for the best. It's
Yeah.
they're looking to see that there is a sense of control.
Mm,
Um, and this is a student who is able to be aware of the reader and is able to sort of manipulate the reader. Um, and yes, vocabulary is important. You do
mm,
want to choose your words carefully. You do want to choose the techniques carefully, um, but they've got to be appropriate. You don't
yeah.
just stick
Yeah.
in a big word.
Mm.
I think I think on TikTok or something there was a word that came up. They're saying, "Oh, this is a fantastic word to use, discombobulated." That's a fantastic. And then everybody had seen that, and all the examiners were finding I was feeling discompo and I was thinking, oh, it wasn't actually,
Oh,
used. Yeah, so it's not just about
don't
grabbing
follow
a.
TikTok all the time.
No. I've never actually gone on to TikTok, but
Yeah.
yeah, so it is about crafting. And with the description, whether you do the description um, or the narrative, it's the same mark scheme, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But the exam board have said in terms of the picture, you don't have to be tied to it. It's there as an inspiration. So you don't feel as if you've got to describe every single thing in that picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Your
because that would
self-interpretation of it, I suppose.
exactly, yes.
Yeah.
It could be a starting point, a jumping off point.
Mm.
And that I think is important. And I would say for the description, have a character, and I would say prepare a character beforehand,
Mm.
um, which you can import into that scene.
Mm.
You can import into any scene, and see, you can see them things through their point of view,
Mm.
or you could describe the character in that scene and how they're viewing it, and that gives an extra depth. um, and you can go, from describing the external environment, you can then go into what they're thinking,
Yeah.
perhaps some of their memories. It
Yeah.
immediately elevates the writing, um, because people are interested in people,
Yeah.
and rather than how beautiful the sunset is or whatever, if you can have somebody watching that sunset and reminiscing about
Mm,
maybe the last time they were there with, with their granny who they loved, and it immediately adds depth.
yeah.
Do you see?
That's brilliant. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
I know that's going to help a lot of people just breaking that down. And this, we will be chatting again about paper two with your
Yes.
top tips.
Yeah.
We'll do that again, definitely.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, paper two is often people find it more challenging
Yeah.
because you've got two inserts to read rather than just the one, and you've got to do there's two questions that require comparison. But again, as long as you've got the structure and right, I've got to do this, this, and this. I know what the examiner is looking for. I know what I've got to do. It takes the stress out, and
That's
you're
amazing. That's brilliant.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. So yeah, well, this is only just a little flavour of what your skills are and what you can offer with your revision course. I can't recommend it enough.
yeah.
Even I'm like feeling a bit like, oh, maybe I could do English.
Oh, yes, you could. Yes,
I'm like, oh, that makes
yeah,
all
it
sense now.
is.
We
It's
should be my
absolutely.
teacher.
Yeah,
Yes, but
yeah.
yeah,
No, I
I
love it. I love it. It's just so amazing to see students go up the grades, when they
yes,
think they
yeah,
can't,
yeah,
they think they couldn't do it, but
yeah.
actually, yes, you can.
You
Yes, you
can do
can.
it. You can definitely do it. If I think I could do
Yes,
it, they could definitely do it.
absolutely. I don't know whether I could do science though. That would be
Oh, it's,
yeah,
but I love it that we've just got different passions and different
yeah,
enthusiasms, and it's lovely. Yeah.
yeah.
But thank you very much. I will love and leave you there,
Yes,
and
lovely.
we will do part two at
Part two. I
very,
look
very
forward
soon.
to it. Yeah.
Coming.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
take care then, Claire.
Bye.
Bye.